So you've built this identity online of on Instagram, on TikTok, all these different things. But what really in your past kind of shaped who you are today, and like where did it start, and like how did that start in that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a Christian home. So I grew up around Jesus and I always knew who he was, right? But I wouldn't say that I was following him closely and I didn't have like an intimate relationship with him. And for me, everything changed whenever I was a sophomore in high school. I actually went to a youth group for the very first time and I met a guy who was my youth pastor whenever I was a kid. But he really shaped me a lot to be who I am today. Because even though I'd gone to church, I necessarily didn't have like a close relationship with a pastor. You know what I mean? And a pastor is supposed to shepherd somebody, right? And it's hard to shepherd somebody whenever you actually don't know the person, right? And that's kind of my story. That's what I was whenever I was a kid. I went to a really big church, so even though I was in church, I don't think that church necessarily affected me the way that it's supposed to. So whenever I was a
Mm.
sophomore in high school, I went to a youth group and got connected with a youth pastor who really just poured into me and became my mentor. And now he's still a mentor to this day, even like 4 or 5 years later. Just being able to have a connection with somebody that does life with you, that walks alongside you. I've really been able to see the change in my heart. And for me, I would say that's the number one thing that kind of set me down this path of going into ministry or really caring about showing others the love of Jesus. Not that I didn't care about that previously, but I got to see what that did in my life. So for me, it was like, dude, like if this can happen in my life just by one person kind of being intentional with me, like I want to be that person for as many people as I possibly can. So that's kind of where it all started in my life. So
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. No, that's amazing. I think, yeah, oftentimes we kind of, I don't know, like go through life and we don't really think about the impact one person can have on our life. But like it really can go and like completely change the trajectory of your life when you have that one person that you can kind of go back to or kind of like get to know on a different level, I guess you could say. That's beautiful. I really like that. So when you say like you went to youth and you grew up in this kind of like environment, like often people talk about how like faith is like kind of like an easy way, like to have like when life's easy, faith is easy. But like
yeah,
when real faith is tested, it's like really tested in the hardest moments in life. So what's a moment in your life where kind of like you had to um, lean on God in that time,
mm,
like in that hard moment of life where
yep.
maybe things weren't going exactly like you hoped they would go.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been so many times where life didn't necessarily go as planned, and I think that for me, the hardest times that I've had to kind of lean on God is whenever I try to control things and I don't actually submit everything to Him. I think that as humans, like our nature is to want to control things. We want to know every single step of the way where we're going, where our next meal is, where our next move is. And for me, I think of every time in my life where there was a moment of uncertainty. Like whenever I was applying to colleges and I didn't know where I was going to go, and there were so many months where I was so confused at where I was going to be for the next 4 years. And I think that those seasons of like those times where I didn't know what was coming next, those times I can reflect back on and be like, wow, like even if I didn't know it in that moment, I know that God was with me every step of the way. And I think that honestly, oftentimes I don't think that God gives us every answer to every question because I think that if we always had every answer, then maybe we wouldn't need to rely on Him as much as we do. And it reminds me of my favorite verse in the entire Bible, which is John 13:7. And it's Jesus after He washes the feet of His disciples. He's talking to them, and He says, "You may not now understand what's happening, but later you will." Right? And I kind of look back on that verse and be like, "Wow, man! Like these disciples who love Jesus so much and were with him every single day, like he was about to leave them, and even Jesus then was like, "Hey, it's gonna be okay," So I think for me, that's something I kind of reflect back on and kind of gives me comfort in moments of uncertainty or hard times. So
Yeah, no, that's actually really beautiful. No, I that's something that I used to struggle with, or I still do. I mean, I'm human. I recently went through like a tough time during my business,
mhm.
and that definitely is something that I have to rely on, like showcasing that I can't control everything. I don't know everything, And like you said, like God intentionally probably doesn't give us all the answers. I find like kind of he gives us kind of like these like nuggets, like
Yeah.
almost like you have to piece the puzzle together. And that's kind of beautiful in a sense. Like I
Yep.
really like how you put that, in the sense that like you have to kind of, you do the thing and he's not giving you all the answers, but he'll give you difficulties, or he'll give you different things to kind of work on, becoming closer to him. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really beautiful. So that was really beautifully put. I appreciate that.
100%.
So when, yeah, yeah, 100%. So when you were saying like, people, like I guess a lot of people in, I guess in our day and age, like materialism and like those types of things are really glorified in our world.
Yeah.
Like not like a relationship with Christ or a relationship in God and those types of things.
Yep.
So I think we see online, especially on social media, a lot of people who are like made it, but really in reality, they're really empty inside.
Yeah.
So what do you think are things like, what do you think people get wrong about success? And then how can we, as Christians, inspire others to, I guess, quote unquote, get success that's more fulfilling? And how can
Yeah.
we find that?
100%. I think just off the bat, I think that our culture, and especially people our age, we have the wrong idea of what success is. Uh, Jesus obviously is the only thing that will fill you, but I think that for people our age, what we want is we want everything like this, like immediately. Like we want instant gratification, instant success. We want to speed run everything. Our minds are so much smaller. Our outlook on life is so much narrower than people a generation behind us. If you told somebody, hey, like I want to help you build your business, and in 10 years you'll be financially free, they'd be like, dude, I don't do that 10 years from now. But if you told an older person that, they'd be like, oh my gosh, like absolutely. Uh, and I think that the reason why it's like that is because people our age, we're so used to having everything at our fingertips. Our phones. We can open our phones and we can swipe once and swipe, 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 and everything is happening instantly, and we get immediately what we want. And I think it trains our mind to want everything right away. Um, so I think for us, success is in an instant, honestly. And I think that we have the wrong idea of what success is. I think that people think that success is all kinds of things. That success is money, which is not true. People think that success is instant gratification, which is not true. People think success is recognition, which is not true. Uh, because success, right, and true fulfillment can only come with walking with Jesus, right? And there's so many things that walking with Jesus will get you in life, right? Like true success is being able to go to bed at night and sleep and not have stress keeping up all night, and those types of things come with a relationship with Jesus. But all kinds of people have their own idea of what success is in their life. Right now I'm a pastoral leadership student and business student. I'm a double major at Liberty University. And in one of my classes, which is all men because it's a pastoral leadership class and it just happens to be all guys, my professor looked at us and he said, okay, man, well, each of you will struggle with things in life. But everyone in this room, your main struggle will be one of these three things. He said, it'll be gold, it'll be girls, or it'll be glory, right? It'll be money, it'll be sex, or it'll be recognition, honor, fame, power, right? Uh, and I think that each person kind of has something in their heart that they struggle to give to God, right? Like, what is your idol? And I think that this is something that you need to do, right, in your own heart, your own life, and your own prayer with the Lord. You need to seek your heart, do some self-seeking, some self-reflection, and kind of look, man, God, what do I have the hardest time giving to you? And I think that it's that thing that we think, oh, if I had that, I would be happy, I would be successful. For example, if your thing is gold, man, if I just had $1 million, or man, if I just had a successful business, then XYZ, XY, like then I'll be happy. Then I won't have that stress, right? Or man, if I only had a wife, if I only was married, if I wasn't lonely, then I would be happy. And the truth is, none of that will fill you. And all those things, they can be great, right? Recognition can be great. Money can be used for great things. Uh, but in the end, those things won't fulfill you. Only Jesus will. I personally know business leaders, CEOs, people that have everything in life that many people would want, and they're suicidal because at the end of the day, those things don't fulfill you, and you can still be empty. One of my friends was the number one MLB draft pick, and he was suicidal. And it's like those types of things.
Mm,
Like we think that those things will fulfill you, and they won't. It's only Jesus and Jesus alone. So,
amen.
yeah,
No, that's really powerful. I think, yeah, like a lot of people, we don't see, like, especially on social media, you see like the good side of things, right? Like, like I think like you said, we have instant gratification. We don't see 90% of someone's life, right? Like you're seeing only the good side of people's life, on social media, especially. And yeah, no, that's very good. Well put. I think a lot of people, we compare ourselves to an unrealistic expectation
yeah,
of what other people live up to. And we only live, or we only see the good side of a lot of people's lives. And then we feel bad about ourselves. We don't seek wisdom from God, or we don't seek all these different things that we should be doing. Instead, we seek like attention, or we seek fame or money and those types of things. Yeah, so I think that was very well put. I appreciate that. So in society, like a lot of times, I think right now, and maybe especially a little bit earlier, society kind of put men as weaker,
hmm
or I guess like a lot of masculinity, for example, was kind of pushed down upon, or
yeah.
Christian masculinity was pushed down upon. What do you think a strong man actually looks like to you? And this is kind of a selfish question because I'm trying to learn, but what do you think a man of God, and what do you think that person like looks like to you, and how can we improve and get to that position?
100%. I don't think that a man has to be tall, strong, with a lot of hair, and have a beard. I don't think that's what a man is. But what I think a man is a leader. I think that a man should
Mm,
not be afraid to speak. I think that a man should be able to lead his family. Whenever I think a Christian man, I think a man who prays over his family. These are things that maybe seem sensitive. Maybe they seem soft. Uh, I know a lot of people that have dads that like they've never seen cry. Like a man
mm,
cries because emotions are real and they're given by God. I think that
yeah,
you should be okay with that. That shouldn't be something that this
mhm,
scares you. And I would actually say that it's
mhm,
unmanly if you are afraid of your emotions because you're afraid of something.
yeah,
That's not being strong. Uh,
mm,
I think being a strong leader looks like leading your family and protecting your family, which is stuff that I would say people think that a man already does. But I think whenever I think strong man, I mean a faithful husband and a servant, right? Because just like Jesus, right? Jesus was a leader, but Jesus oftentimes didn't lead from the front, right? It says that the Son of Man came to serve,
mm,
not to be served, right? And I think that for us, that our model of what a man looks like should be Jesus, and same with the leader. Uh, so a man is somebody who serves. A man is somebody who's faithful. A man is somebody who's a leader, who's strong. Um, yeah, I mean, that's all that in my mind. Whenever I think of a godly man, those are the first things that I think
mhm.
about. But
Yeah, that's beautiful. No, I think no, you guy that's kind of something that I've been working on, so I appreciate that. No, I think that yeah, I think something that I've been actually thinking about, which is interesting that you brought that up, is the emotion part. So
yeah,
like being like in society, men are told to like not show emotion, not show
hmm
weakness. But something that I've been, I guess, praying about, but also thinking about is if we were to suppress something that God gave us, and if we were to not, like, He gave us emotions, He gave
yeah,
us things to work on. And I don't think that's by mere coincidence. Like, it's
yeah,
not like He gave it so that we would, like, have a hard life. I mean, maybe He did in certain extent, but, like, I think that a lot of the things that we struggle with, or the emotions that a lot of men try to suppress, and that's something that I've been working on personally, is yeah, being able to express emotions to a certain degree. Like
yep,
if we have emotions, learning how to accept the emotion and then understand why do I feel this emotion, and then kind of pray on it to understand it deeper. Like I think a lot of men, especially the two emotions, or maybe the number one emotion that a lot of people men feel is anger,
yep,
probably
yep,
in my personal experience. And I think being able to understand why you feel angry,
Yep.
and then kind of work backwards
Hmm.
to try to figure that out. And then also just kind of understanding that, like, and kind of giving it to God, I think it really helps. But what would your experience be in, like, in that emotion, and then that kind of like that weakness, or I guess you could put it in a different way, but what would you say would be like a good way to approach that,
Yeah.
on like just trying to do that?
Yeah, 100%. I think that for each person, we probably have a tendency to go towards one as our fight or flight response. And I think that a lot of men struggle with anger. For some reason,
Yeah.
that's not me. I'm the type of
Okay.
guy where, like, if something happens, like, I will, like, either just isolate myself or just go be alone or just take time by
Mm,
myself. Uh, and I think that maybe that's derived from sadness. I don't know. But that's my go-to. And a lot of people, it's anger.
okay.
And I think to kind of bring that to the Lord, kind of like the what's your idol type of thing, kind of seeking your own heart and kind of being like, Lord, what emotion do I struggle the hardest with giving unto you? Um, because I think that in the end, uh, submitting everything to God is the only way that we can actually control things in life. And I think that emotions are kind of a taboo topic for men. I
Yeah.
think that our culture, we kind of want to suppress them, make them go away, act like they don't exist. We think that
Mhm.
crying is bad. I've actually never seen my dad cry ever. Uh,
Mm,
and maybe that's just the way that he was raised. But I don't think that crying is bad. So if you cry after an argument or something and you're a man, that doesn't make you any less of a man. It just means that that's your response to when something goes bad. And that's totally okay. There were all
mm,
kinds of people in the Bible that were emotional. David cried and cried out to the Lord through, like, read the book of Psalms. There's like 150 chapters that are just like half of them are just him, just like, dude, my life sucks. Like, that
yeah.
is okay if that is how you process things. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think that we have the wrong idea of really what emotions are, because they're a gift from the Lord.
Mm,
Emotions are an
mm,
opportunity to look back at our life and be like, wow, like, that really meant a lot to me, or wow, that really hurt me, or wow, this is how I process things. I think that emotions are like the key to our heart almost. We can look into our heart and see what's really inside whenever we understand what our emotions are and why we have them. So I think that reflecting and giving every response unto God is the only way to kind of seek through that.
yeah, that's beautiful. No. Wow. Yeah. No, I think, yeah, that's definitely something that, I need to probably do more. And yeah, so I think I've noticed a lot of people in my group, in just online, and a lot of people who in the self improvement area, they can't stay consistent. Like, they're really fired up about something that they want to do. Oh, like, I'm really passionate, or I'm really purpose
Yep.
want to do this thing. What do you think really separates or the people who just do it and then kind of fall off, and those who follow through with the thing that they want to do?
Yeah. One word: discipline. But there's so much more than just discipline, right? Because discipline is something in your life that will affect every area of life, whether you know it or not. For example, if I asked you, Alan, how many times have you read your Bible this week? If your
Mm,
answer is one or two, it is not because life is too busy. It is not
yeah.
because you're a college student, you're slaying, or, oh man, I was working, or I was too tired. The only reason why is because you are not disciplined enough to do that, right? And I think
Yes.
that oftentimes what it takes for us to be disciplined is just to get a glimpse of what life is like when you are disciplined, right? Because
Mm,
sometimes that's our fuel that motivates us. For example, I used to be a big guy. I used to be fat, right? Whenever I was a kid, I was a big
mm,
guy. And what happened was I started working out and everything changed for
mm,
me. And the second that I saw the littlest glimpse of what life looks like whenever you're building muscle and you're losing fat, uh, and I saw what that did to me and for me, I was like, dude,
mm,
I'm never going back, right? And everything changed because I saw a glimpse of what life looked like when it was different. And ever since then, I've
mm.
been 52 weeks of 5 days in the gym. Like, I'm like locked in. And the reason why is
Wow.
because that discipline for me, like, that's what changed so much in my life. I was like, dude, how could I ever let go of this? And I think that uh, people are so quick to not follow through on something because they don't have discipline. Like,
Mm,
uh, I mean, there's a famous story of, like, get up in the morning and make your bed, right? Because it's the first thing that you do, and you accomplish something in the morning, and you set your day for success, right? What I've grown up
mm,
doing also is I've grown up making lists every single day. Like, grab a sheet of paper, write down, these are the 10 things that I want to do today. and it helps you actually get stuff done. Uh, and I'm like a very like vision driven person, and I'm a very self driven person, so I don't need a lot of like motivation from other people to do stuff. In my notes on my phone, I have a note called vision, my vision board, right? And I have like the
Mm,
10 things that I want to do over the next like 6 months. Uh, and it's like these are things that I'm like actively pursuing right now. And like one of them is like read my Bible every single day. And it's like I have that on my phone every single day that I open it up. I look at it and it reminds me, okay, I need to be disciplined and stay in this area. And discipline's not
yeah,
easy. I think that we think that discipline, like we're never going to fail at it. And whenever we do fail at it, then we get discouraged and we stop. Like it's like people that they do fasts, and then if they mess up once, they're like, man, I'm just gonna forget it. It's like perfection is not what's expected out of us. And I think
yeah,
that we set our minds to so many things that whenever we fail once, like, okay, I'm just gonna stop completely. Last thing I'll say,
yeah,
another thing that I think that people do is I think that they give themselves too many things to try to be disciplined at. It's like, Alan, if you're trying to do a podcast, a YouTube channel, a TikTok channel, Instagram, and you're trying to do a business and you're a full time student while
yeah,
working a job, it's like, dude, like you
yeah,
are gonna fail because you have too many things.
yeah,
And I,
yeah,
I I personally know people that are like right now pursuing like 6 different things. And it's like the thing is, it's like maybe you'll learn a lot and that's great. But the truth is if you have 6 different things, you're not going to be really great at any of them, because you don't have enough time to be really great at any of them. So I
yeah.
think that, I mean, managing our time and not letting ourselves get burnt out, is another big thing. So,
That last part probably resonated with me so much. I struggle with that a lot. As is something that I try to avoid. I'm always someone who wants to just fill in my time, and always, if I'm not doing something that I think is productive, then I beat
yeah,
myself about it. So that's a really good reminder. I think something that I did, I think I did last week that I'm trying to incorporate into this week is just taking time to think.
yeah,
It's
wow,
been like completely game changing. Like, I used to
wow,
get mad at myself if I didn't, like, if I had like 30 minutes just sitting around, and I
yeah,
was just like, for example, if I weren't doing something productive, I would just consider that day a waste of time. And I had to learn that it's okay to just sit and be silent for like an hour. And
yeah,
it's not a waste of time, because you're kind of bringing in all the things that you're doing. And there's this guy that I was listening to, I don't remember his name, but he was talking about how we can live more fulfilling lives by removing things and have a
wow,
simplified life rather than adding things. And I think a lot of people, including myself, struggle with, oh, I need to do this and that because I'm not productive if I'm not working 24/7, or it didn't hit my macro routine for my business
yeah,
or my workout or whatever it is. That really, all those different things really kind of add up. And then you feel like it's not productive because your one thing that you did
yeah,
wasn't productive.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I think that's really powerful to remind ourselves that.
But that's not even a bad thing that you recognize that, because what did you learn about yourself, right? You're trying to do 10 things at once, but what you learned is that you're very self-driven. You learned that you're very motivated.
Mm,
You learned that you want to be a high achiever, right? So like these are good things that we can learn about ourselves, even in moments where
right.
we're like, dude, like what am I doing? So
Mm,
you learn something about yourself, and like that's totally great. So I think that it's hard not to get discouraged whenever like, dude, like I'm burnt out, I'm tired, I'm doing 10 things at
yeah.
once, and I'm procrastinating on all of them at the same time because I'm going to do something else immediately. And I think that sometimes all it takes for us to really change, like everything changes in our life, is just try to be really faithful at like 2 or 3 things. Like how much
Mm,
time could you put into 2 or 3 things that you I mean, you could be really just excel at these things. Like for example, like this podcast, like this is something that you're
yeah.
doing. It's amazing. But if you do 10
Yeah.
things at once and you don't put time into this podcast, like this will never
Yeah.
grow as it should. And I think this is a
Yeah.
wonderful opportunity. So be faithful with the little things,
No.
what I think. And I think that once you're faithful with the little things, that it kind of goes to everything. Actually, this just came in my mind. I'm gonna say it before I forget it.
Yeah.
Uh, one time, it speaks on discipline and things like that. And this is I heard a sermon that really kind of changed my mind and my outlook on like everything in life. And that sermon was about being excellent at everything, right? Just
Mm,
like the idea of what it means to live with excellence. And I think that for me, it's like my mindset changed from doing things that were convenient, doing things that were easy, maybe doing a hard thing every once in a while, to trying to be excellent at everything I do. And what that means is like going the extra mile, right? It's like doing things that aren't easy. And the truth is whenever you do something that's hard, you're training your mind to be like, hey, you are in submission to what I want, right? Like you're training your body, your emotions, like that, your energy to
Yeah.
be like, no, 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 you are going to do hard things. And I think that being an excellent person uh, means to do things that aren't easy, you know. And I think that
Mm,
that's where discipline starts. Is so many people, they want to be disciplined, but they want to do easy things, and those two things don't work very well together. Uh,
yeah.
so that's a sermon that really changed my everything. Not that you can be excellent at everything, but that you should at least
Mm,
try. So
mm, that's beautiful. I think, yeah. Wow. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, I definitely need to think about that a little bit. But so, um, you'll, I guess it's sometimes it's hard to find like solid friends, and
yep,
especially I think for men in the day and age we live in.
yep.
Um, do you think it's ever harder? Do you think it's harder than ever to find a good, solid friends? And then how can we build a circle of people that push us forward into becoming like more Christ-like, better versions of ourselves in the day and age that we live in? And how do you think we should go about that?
Wow, wow. What a wonderful question. Um, I don't know if it's harder than ever to find
Mm,
Christ-like friends, um, but I think that it's extremely important. And it's actually been something that I've been learning this past probably 3 months. Is I've had the same friend group through all of college, and it's just been like really difficult lately. So I've been like, hey guys, like really trying to be encouraging. Uh, and the Lord's been speaking to me a lot about what it really means to have a Christ-like friend. So I don't think
yeah.
that it's harder than ever, but it's definitely more important than ever because
Mm,
your friends shape you so much. There's like a million verses in Proverbs that talk about how
yeah.
if you hang around fools, that's who you will become. Uh,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's that famous quote: "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." And it's like the you are the five people you hang around the most.
Right.
And I think that you can tell that by your own speech. It's like one of my best friends who lives in my house. He's a
Hmm.
professional hockey player, played hockey at my university. Like the way that he talks is so different, and I'm around him so much that like I'll say
Hmm.
stuff and I'll be like, dude, that sounded so much like Marty. I'm like, what am I
Mm,
doing? And it's like that is the perfect example
yeah.
of like who you're around shapes you, whether you realize it or not.
Mm,
So I think that it's more important than ever to have a Christ-like circle, have Christ-like friends. Uh, but the way that I would go about finding those, uh, honestly, that's only like through the Lord, and I think that's something you have to pray about a lot. Uh, but I think that so often we settle for whoever just wants to be around us, and I think that that's the easiest way to pick the wrong friends. Is like, okay, who will spend time with me? Who can have a fun time with? First person, bang, that's my friend group. Uh, and I think that especially at college, that's something that people fall victim to is because they go to college and like, okay, man, I'm gonna join a frat. These are my friends, this is my family, done. That's like, but that's really not what
yeah.
the Lord has for you. The Lord doesn't have for you just solid friends. He doesn't have friends for you that are going to be a fun time. But I really think that the Lord has friends for you that are going to encourage you and lift you up and pull you closer to Christ. And I think that it's something you have to do a lot of self reflection on. Is like, man, with my friend group, when's the last time that I spoke to them and I walked away and I was like, dude, I really feel like pulled towards Christ through that conversation. And if the answer is
Mm,
like, man, I don't really know when the last time was, I think you gotta, kind
mm,
of rethink some things in your life because ultimately your friends really shape you and your desires and your disciplines. And I've been seasons in my life where I've had friends that weren't encouraging very much, and the result of that is that I wasn't as disciplined in reading my Bible. I wasn't as disciplined in spending time with God because I didn't want to, because
mm.
that wasn't my priority in that season because that's not their priority. And it's like the priorities of your friends kind of seep over into your heart a little bit too. Not that you are your friends, but you will be like them. So
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's good. What do you think about like, so when you say like you kind of surround yourself with like people in your own frat, or like when you're in college, you kind of just settle for people. When you say like, what do you think the definition of like a good friend is? Is it to make the other person more like Christ? Is it to kind of challenge them?
Yeah.
Is it to keep them responsible? Like what do you think are the key traits for people to look for so that they can't just, or they don't just kind of settle into something that might
Yeah.
not be good for them?
100%. The number one thing that I want in a friend is somebody who walks with Jesus, because there are times in your life where you won't be as strong in your faith, and you need people around you to be like, "Hey, man, like that's not right. You need to stop. You need to do this. You need to do X, Y, and Z." And somebody like that, like I don't want good advice. I want God advice. You know what I mean? I don't
Mm,
want somebody that's going to tell me what the right thing to do is. I want somebody to tell me what the God thing to do is. And I think that only a friend who walks with the Lord and knows Him intimately will be able to do that for you. So that's the number one thing. I think that the other thing is that somebody who's encouraging. I have a lot of really great friends who maybe aren't encouraging, and I think that it's difficult to be around that person because you're always like feeling like you're being made fun of, or there's a joke, or they're like there's always like a competition in some sort. And I think that somebody who's encouraging, who will encourage you in your things and help you. Another thing is like a friend who serves. I think that's so important. And honestly, these are all attributes of Jesus, which is the only example.
mhm.
Jesus
Yeah.
calls his disciples friends. Uh, but I think that a friend is somebody who serves another person. Has a servant's heart. A friend is somebody who's humble, who will be there for you. A friend is somebody who's faithful. Like a friend is somebody who you can go to with stuff that won't go tell other people. Somebody that you can confide in. Um, and I think ultimately all of those are just fruits of having a relationship with Jesus. Whenever you know Jesus intimately, you are a humble person because He is humble. Whenever you know
Yeah.
Jesus intimately, you are a servant because He's a servant. And I think
Mhm.
that who you're around matters so much. And I think that after a relationship with Jesus, it is probably the most foundational piece of your life, ultimately to who you become and what you do. So
No, that's beautiful. Yeah. I think a lot of people go through life knowing that people who they surround themselves with shape who they are, but then they don't change it because change is uncomfortable. Like they don't push past the uncomfortability of like saying, okay, this is not okay, or to tell the person in your friend group, like, this is not okay, or this is not something that you want to do. I found that like being upfront about that is maybe in the moment might not feel like good, but down the road, it can really help that person. And then also just being there for people. I think it's interesting because in the world that we live in, I used to I used to be very distant person, and then I kind of became closer to the Lord, and I became like very available kind of. But in the modern world, like availability is like kind of looked down upon. Like, oh, you're
yeah,
always available. It's like, yeah, I'm here because I want to be a good person and I want to
yeah,
help out. Like I'm going to offer that because that's what I need to do, or that's what I'm called upon doing. Like serving. Are you available? Yeah. Do you want to go out to dinner? Sure. I'll
yeah,
go out to dinner with you, because it's being able to connect with people who move you closer to the Lord.
yeah,
Or I'm sick.
yeah,
Oh, can I bring you food? Like just being in that mindset of just being there, serving, loving at all times, like all those different things. Though I think those things completely change the dynamic of friendships. And I think it's
yeah.
interesting because it's kind of like the complete opposite of what people in a friendship would consider a friend. Like some people would consider a friend like just being there to party or to do these different things. But a real friend would be there for you whenever and through everything, like through hardship and through adversity and all these different things.
Even when it doesn't benefit them, you know. And also, like what you said about availability, just because you're available to somebody, it does not mean that you don't have anything to do. It means that that's a choice you have to make, to be available. And
100%.
availability is the best ability, right? Like it's like the best thing you can offer somebody uh, is being there for them,
Mm,
especially in times of need. But even more in
yes.
times when they don't need anything, like when there's no reason you should
Yeah.
be available to them, but you choose
Yeah.
to anyway. I think that's love, so.
Yeah, 100%. So most people think of success that comes from motivation. But I feel like pain is a pretty big teacher. So I
Yeah.
would like to ask you, what's a moment or a hard moment in life that changed everything or a lot of things for you, and how could that discomfort or pain shape you into becoming who you are today?
Wow. Wow. What a question, man. You got me there. I think that loss is definitely something that shapes us, and pain is something that shapes us a lot. Um, and I've had a lot of hard moments. I wouldn't say that I've had like a loss that has like kind of altered my life, but I've definitely lost a lot of friendships in my life. People
Mm,
from high school that I was really really close with, um, and I've had friends from high school that really like went behind my back and did things to me that weren't good. People that I'd given a lot of things to, and I think that the biggest thing that I kind of learned from that is kind of that idea of the only thing that I owe somebody is love. And I think that even whenever people do something wrong to us, I think that our natural response is like, man, like like to hell with them. Like I don't need to talk to them anymore. Like they're awful. Um, and I think that our response should be love, and I kind of understand now what love means in that sense. I think that going through that season of time in that time where I'd given this person so much, and they just didn't care and they didn't like me anyways, and they told people all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think that I kind of understand what it means to kind of love somebody that doesn't love you back. And I
mm,
think that I found out that love doesn't mean that they have to be your friend. Love doesn't mean that you have to give them stuff. Love just means how you treat them, and I think that you can love somebody and not want to be around them. Like
mhm.
there's this famous quote, like I still want to see you eat, just not at my table. Uh, I
Oh
think
yeah,
that I think that I understood what it means to love somebody who hurt you. So it's like whenever I see this person, like I still say hi to them. I still love on them in every way that I can. Uh,
yeah,
and it's like the idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was wrong. Forgiveness does not mean that things have to go back to the way that they were previously. Forgiveness is not automatic reconciliation with the person. Forgiveness is just saying, I'm giving up the right to hold that against you anymore. Like it's not in my hands. I'm giving it up, and I think that that's the freedom that we can kind of find in forgiveness. Is saying like, I used to hold on to that because that means that what you did against me meant that I can do something back to you. I'm giving that up. And I think that that's
yep,
why forgiveness is so freeing, because it's forgiveness is not
100%.
giving them something. You're not giving them forgiveness, but more you're giving up the right to do something back to them or to hold that against them. So whenever I
Yeah,
think of forgiveness, I think of giving up. I don't think of giving them something. I think that you're letting something go from your heart, which is that hard heart that you have towards them. So
mm,
overall, through that experience, I kind of learned what it means to love somebody who did you wrong, and also what forgiveness really is. It's giving up something. So
yeah, that's beautiful. I think I was going to ask you about forgiveness, which is amazing that you pointed it out. But how do you think we can learn? Like, it's hard to forgive. Like, that's one of the hardest things. Like, if someone were to like really do you wrong, like if they were to like really hurt you in a bad way, and then us having to just say, okay, even though you did all these different things and all these damaging things, I still forgive you. How can we, how do you think the best way to navigate that is? Like, I think a lot of people struggle with forgiveness. Like, even if like it's not like that big of a thing that maybe you go across or come across, but let's say like you get hurt really badly, and then Jesus teaches us to forgive 70
yeah,
times 7, like as many times as we can. How do you think we should go about forgiving? And like how you said, giving up, like we have to give up, and like um, forgiveness is something that we can give, not something
yeah,
that we are required. But how do you think people should go about, like if it's super hard, what would you recommend, like the steps to
yeah.
go through forgiveness during that?
For me, I really think of like from the perspective of Jesus as how I understand forgiveness. And I'm sorry, you're talking to a pastoral student, so this is just how I think through everything.
No,
Uh,
that's great.
for me, I think of Jesus on the cross, looking at us, and it's like even after like Jesus forgave us for everything, and it was a moment in time that shifted everything on the cross, um, where we don't have to work for our salvation. It's a free gift, right? That's what Romans says. It's a free gift of God, and that everyone's guilty, all fall short. Um, and I think now, even though we're forgiven, even though we're under His grace and His forgiveness and His mercy, and we're allowed to live unto Him and with Him every single day, we still turn away every day, and we're still so flawed. Um, and I think from Jesus' perspective, like looking at Luke Nolan and looking at Alan, uh, and even though that we know that we're forgiven and we know that there's a better way, we still do things that are wrong. And for me, that is the worst offense, worse than anybody could ever do to me. It's like if I gave up my life for somebody and they were like, "Thank you," and then they still went and did things that were totally opposite what I told them, I'd be like, "Dude, like that is the worst possible I can ever imagine." And that's me. That's my story. And Jesus still chooses to forgive me. And whenever He died on the cross, He knew me. He knew everything about me, and He still said, "No, no, no. Like that person's worth dying for." And that goes for everybody who's listening to this, even you. And I think that who am I to have a hard heart towards somebody whenever Jesus never had a hard heart towards me and my flaws and my decisions? And I mean, God knows every decision, every sin you've ever made, and every sin you ever will make. And He still says, "That's my child. That person is worthy of of grace." And I think that's kind of how I think of forgiveness is like we forgive because He forgave us. First John, that is the only way that I think about forgiveness. So that's me.
No, I really like that. I think no, that's yeah. I think where you pointed out like he knowingly died for you. That I think that is just it's just like I think it like if anyone were to come and say that like it's so powerful and it's like you can't even put it into words how powerful that is. But yeah, that's yeah, something that I always think about and it's just something that it's just amazing to me.
I was gonna say I think that also honestly we have kind of a tainted view of the forgiveness of God and His relationship with our sin through that. I think that oftentimes we think that yes, Jesus died for me, but He looks at me as kind of dirty and as sinful, and I need to
Mm,
change so that I can be like Him and so that He can love me better. And that's
mm,
really not true, because Jesus, whenever He was dying on the cross, He didn't die for you and be like, "Oh man, I don't want to look at that part of Luke that is sinful." Like He didn't die for you and look away from your sin, but He looked right at your sin. He said, "No, no, no, that's worth it to me." Uh,
yeah.
and I think He doesn't love us like in spite of our sin, right? He loves us
Hmm.
like through our sin. Like it's not like something that
Ooh.
He's like turning away from. It's not something that like plagues Him to the point where He's like, I don't know if that person's worthy. No, no, no. It's like He doesn't love us despite our sin. He loves us through our sin. He loves us because of our sin. He loves us because we need Him. And I think
Mm,
that whenever we understand that sin is not something that like makes God love us any less. There's nothing that we can do or don't do to be loved more or less by God. That more like He already loves you the most He absolutely can right now as you are. Um, Not that doesn't mean that we don't have to change. Because I think that whenever we find Jesus, we have to change. And if we don't change, then I don't know if we found Jesus at all. That's what a lot of people do. But I think that we kind of have a tainted view of what it means to be forgiven by Him. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Do you ever feel like God puts people through different seasons of like confusion or uncertainty before showing them like the full picture? And how do you know that you're on the right path?
wow. Wow, what a question. I think that this is like the ultimate question that everyone wants the answer to is like, dude, how do I know if I'm walking in God's will? I think that everyone wants to
Yeah.
know that. Uh, and it's tough. Last night I was actually reading a psalm and David was just writing. He's like, Lord, just show me your ways. I want to walk in your ways. Uh, and I think that gives me comfort knowing that even people that like lived in like Bible times that literally wrote a part of the Bible, even
Mm,
then It was like, man, am I walking in God's will? Am I? And I think it's tough. It's tough. I think that it's just ultimately something that comes with walking with Jesus. And also, I think that we need a burning bush moment every step of the way, but I think that the reason why God gives us his presence and faith, why God gives us the ability to trust him, is because he wants us to mature and make decisions on our own sometimes. I think that sometimes we're like, okay, God, I'm just going to sit and wait right here until you show up in front of me and tell me exactly what to do. It's like, but there's no faith
Yeah.
in that. There's no faith in that at all. Uh, and I think that, sometimes Jesus is calling us to walk out on the water, right? You think Jesus in the water, Peter's walking out and is like, okay, come out, come walk out to the water, come walk out to me. And I think that Jesus, in faith, he draws us out of places that we're not comfortable in. And I think that, yes, sometimes he puts us in times where we're maybe, I don't know about confused, but I think uncertain. I think that
Mm.
uncertainty is not something that we should run away from. I think that uncertainty is something that comes with, you know, big decisions in life and moments that can make or break things, and I think that through those seasons, uh, you must trust God, and that's the only way that you can get
Yeah.
through. Uh, and in the book of Matthew, it's the passage whenever, like I said, Jesus is on the water, right? Kind of get the image here. Jesus is on the water. There's the big storm. All the waves are crazy, and all the disciples are in the boat, right? And Jesus talking to Peter. He's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, come out to me into the water." And he's like, "Dude, like, are you sure? Like, I don't want to do this." And he's like,
Yeah.
"Yes, come out to me." He starts walking out to him, which is a place that's uncomfortable. Like he doesn't want to be there. Like, I don't know about you, I don't want to be in like the middle of the ocean by without a boat. Like that sounds awful.
No.
Uh,
Yeah.
and he was standing in the water because he was looking right at Jesus, even
Yeah.
though the waves were going crazy, even though it was an uncertain moment, a moment of stress, a moment of crisis. Everything was okay because he was
Yeah.
looking at Jesus, right? And what the Bible
Mm.
says, it says that once he began to look around at the waves, and he looked around at the waves around him, he began to sink. And I think that that's a metaphor for our life. I think that in moments where we're drawn out to uncomfortable places, like the middle of the ocean, off of a boat, when we're looking at Jesus and he's our priority, everything's okay. And like we're okay, even though we don't know what our next step is going to be. Peter didn't know what was going to happen next, but he was looking at Jesus, so he was okay. But he took his eyes off Jesus and he looked at the things around him in the water. He looked at the dangers in life. He looked at the things that were stressing him, and then he began to sink. And I think that that is a metaphor for our life. Aside from the lessons you can learn from that, it's like whenever we're in moments we're uncertain, whenever we're in moments where maybe God's calling us to a place that's uncomfortable or uncertain, we don't know what's going to happen. If we keep our eyes on Jesus and He's our priority and He's who I'm serving, He's why I'm here, then everything's okay. But what happens is it's our human nature to take our eyes off and be like, oh, these waves are nice. Like, oh man, I'm enjoying this part of success. Like, oh, like this is because of me. We make it about me, then we begin to sink. And I think that that can go about business too. Is like, the Lord gives so many people so many blessings, and then we think that it's about us. We got that. And maybe we do things for us because now I don't need to trust in Jesus anymore because I have money. And then what happens? You begin to sink. So, yep.
Yeah. That's yeah. That's very beautiful. Very well put. I that's it's interesting that you say that because I think that the metaphor that you just put is like when we're doing, yeah, like how you said business too. Like I think a lot of people, and when you get really successful, you kind of forget about the importance of just putting God at the center of everything. And it's a lot of times a lot of people just forget about it completely, and then it's like, why are you even doing what you're doing? Like it's interesting, like the how you put, if you keep your focus on Jesus and not focus on the waves, which in my opinion is kind of like you're putting your focus, like if you were to put it in art interpretation now, it'd be like focusing on Jesus or like the worldly things that we want. It's like if you just don't focus on the worldly things and you just trust, even if you don't know your next step, everything will kind of it works out. And it's kind of a beautiful thing. And that metaphor that you put in that way, I think it really beautifully encapsulates that message. So
Yep.
I think, yeah, so there's a beautiful balance between between being grateful for what you are and what you have and still wanting to have more, like wanting to
Yep.
do more. How do you know when you should push harder and when to just kind of trust the process?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there may not be a right or wrong. It's like I think that it depends how self driven you are. I'm a very driven person, and I always like want to do more. I want more. I want more. And I think that looking back, I think that there's been times in my life where like I don't think that I've needed more, but I've wanted it, which is not a bad thing. I don't think that you should be critical of yourself, if you're like trying to achieve so much stuff. I think that's a good thing. I think that means you're motivated. I think that like we said about you, like we learned stuff about you. That's great. Uh, but I think that submitting everything to God, as long as you submit it to God, like go be more, go get more. That's great. But I think along the way, doing reflection, being like, is this for the right reasons? Am I doing this because of the Lord? Am I allowing Him to use this as a testimony? Uh, it's like even times in your life where you failed, maybe you didn't do maybe your business didn't grow um, as much as you wanted it to. You can look back and be like, well, that's a testimony for Him because He sustained me through that time where I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to be the next move. I didn't know that my business was going to fail. I didn't know that relationship was going to fail. I didn't know that she was going to break up with me. Like, but even through that, that's a testimony for Him because I trusted Him through that, and that's what He did through me. So I don't think that's a bad thing to want more, honestly. I think that the Lord puts in our heart, this desire to want to accomplish things and to do stuff, and I think that's good. As long as you're doing it for the right reasons, and not letting that be the source of your fulfillment. I think of a picture that I get in my mind is like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. I think that that's what so many people are, is that they always want more because that's what satisfies them. But as a Christian, when you're walking with the Lord, I think that He puts visions and dreams in your heart, you know, uh, that are there for a reason. I think that's not a bad thing necessarily. So
Yeah. Well, I think that was beautiful. Thank you so much for
yeah,
coming on and talking to me. Where can people find you, and where can people learn more about who you are and what you
yeah,
do?
absolutely. Every single social media platform at Luke from Texas. Starting a YouTube channel this week actually, which is just my name, and you can search Luke from Texas. It pops right up. But just those things mainly: Instagram, TikTok, everything. So yeah, thank you so much, Alan. This has been such a
No,
blessing to me,
thank
man.
you.
I've loved our conversation.
No, I appreciate everything and all the insight. It's something that I'll definitely come back and watch myself and learn more because
Yeah.
that's amazing and lots of amazing nuggets. Yeah, so thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.